time for Santa Sold. Oh, there we go. My keyboard was slow this morning. Anyway, welcome to Santa Sold, everyone. My name is Stuart Fournier. I'm a 25-year veteran of the real estate world and here in Los Angeles, and specifically the South Bay, Manhattan, Hermosa, Redondo, Torrance, all those kinds of areas. And it's my pleasure to introduce my lovely co-host.
Hello, everyone. It's Anastasia Bonholzer. I am known as your loan queen. I am a mortgage broker, also out of the South Bay in Los Angeles Beach cities. And I'm also licensed in Texas and Florida.
And there we go. We finally got
Whoa,
it.
look at that.
A little slow, but we'll get there. Anyway,
Yep.
what we wanted to talk about today is AI. And I bring the subject up because Homes.com is pouring like $1 billion into advertising this year and promoting their platform. And one of the highlights, of course, is their AI technology. And so we wanted to cover the realization of real estate and AI right now. Now, obviously, we can't do that in just the 20 minutes we're going to be on the air, but we wanted to cover a couple of points, and I'm going to cover a few, and then Anastasia, if you want to cover your industry as well and talk about how it's affecting.
Yeah.
First of all, this is not an anti-AI broadcast. I'm on AI. I love
Yep.
AI. I'm on it
Yeah.
at least an
I do
hour
too.
to 2 hours a day. And you're the one who got me started, really. One day we
Yeah.
were having a meeting, and
I
when I,
love
s-
AI. I love AI.
I know.
I am not gonna, I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to be the way it was before. It's simplified my industry in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it simplified a lot of things in a good way. However, it's also very tricky. Uh, I spend
Mhm.
at least, I would say, an hour to hour and a half every day, and very often I get tricked into going down a rabbit hole that A and I have a misunderstanding about. And my wife laughs at me because she goes, "Are you having an argument with AI again?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And the reason I bring that up is because uh, AI has no filter in terms of its ability to maybe be a little bit inaccurate. And if you accept everything that it says and you don't have sort of that third eye or a third ear or whatever you want to call it, third sense, you can get pretty lost and go down a rabbit hole that takes a lot to get out of. But let's talk about specifically how it's affecting real estate. There was a kid last week that said, if I don't accept that AI is going to take over my job, uh, you know, very soon, I got my head in the sand. So I wanted to sort of address that attitude
Yeah,
a little bit today.
those
Yeah,
computer programmers who are in college now, they're gonna have to look for something else in the future for sure. But
exactly.
not every industry is replaceable by AI, and I think that's the advantage of our industry. Yesterday, I listened to an individual who said he read an article also a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days ago that said that somebody in Florida actually used ChatGPT to sell his home, and he said it was a smooth process for him, but it will never replace the agent because ultimately the data continues to say that if you use an agent, the agent can ultimately get you more eyeballs on your home, and no chat gpt can ever replace that.
Right. And I
And
would
more eyeballs means more competitive and more money.
and at this stage, any reasonable professional realizes that it is the future, number one. And number two, that you need to gauge it as it becomes more viable. And that's the bottom line with any industry, right? If you're on it and you can see what they're doing, which you should be able to do as a professional, no matter what industry you're in, then you're being responsible because then you can impart to your clients what is and what is not true. So over the next 10, 25 years, will it completely replace certain professions?
Mhm,
Who knows?
mhm.
I have no idea. But what we wanted to do on the show today was just talk about what today's reality is, even though we're big fans. And I wanted to talk about its ability to give property value, number one. and its ability to procedurally tell you what to do, as in the case that you just gave me, because in all truth and honesty, I seriously doubt that some of that was true. And then, of course, what Homes.com is doing nowadays in terms of using AI involved in their platform. So I'm going to get started with property value. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Don't worry, audience, we're not going to bore you to death with this. But in terms of property value, they still do use Zillow, Redfin, Homes.com, Realtor.com. They basically put all those services together and come up with a number or give you an outside opinion about what your house value is. And we've talked many times on this show about the reliability of those kinds of services and how, and you really are doing yourself an injustice by going with those particular platforms that are second string or even third string to what a realtor will tell you about what your house value is. So please, AI is great, but as far as property value goes, you can question it as much as you do any of those other second and third string platforms. So that's number one. Number two is procedurally, do not, and this is advice from a 26-year veteran, do not use the contracts. You can go on IA right now and say, create a contract for me to buy a house. And I did that. And what I got in return, or what came across in return, was so minuscule and had so much liability to it that there are plenty of attorneys out there that are just going to love the fact that someone makes that move. Do not, in any circumstance, rely on AI to write a contract for you at this point. That may change. I don't know, maybe in a year or two or 5 years. I have no idea. But as of today, do not in any way, shape, or form depend on AI, because I will guarantee you two things. Number one, your transaction is unrealistic in terms of what the other party is expecting, and unprofessional as far as I'm concerned. And number two, there are a host of attorneys out there that are going to be making a lot of money over some of the things
Yeah, most
that are
definitely.
lacking. Trust attorneys love the fact that people go on and get their trust done by online platforms, because it means more business for them when they find out what a wreck of a situation that can be. And the same is going to be with regard to buying and selling a house if you do that. Now, let's get into the descriptions, for example. We talked about this just before we came on the air. Now, if you really need to pick a house that's next to Whole Foods, God bless you. But basically, the data that they're using via the AI platform is really just a description that comes across in the actual realtor portal. So it's being remanufactured in a very creative way, but not necessarily anything new about what a listing agent has put into the data for you to see. The truth of the matter is that these companies really do want your data a whole lot more than they're giving you their data. And what I mean by that is that once you go on these sites and you give them or you ask, for example, I want a house near Whole Foods. God knows that Whole Foods probably gets that data as well, right? So every time you use the internet nowadays, and this is no secret to anyone, every time you use the internet nowadays for whatever question you have or whatever circumstance that you're seeking out, there are 3 to 4 other data points that you're giving to different industries that are picking that up. And so when you see while you're on the net, different advertisements come up. It's all because, for example, you just wanted to know if the house was near Whole Foods, right? So be
Right.
cognizant of that. And Anastasia, I'll let you sort of take over right now and let me know how it's affected your
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, in terms of the last couple of years, the way AI has affected my industry is actually the streamlined process of underwriters. Now we're able to, certain lenders exclusively use AI to underwrite a file. You still have a manual person that goes in, but the initial underwrite where before it took maybe 4 or 5 days to get the initial loan approval through. Right now, many different companies have a 4 hour turnaround of approval. So it streamlines the process significantly. And that's how, how fast can we do the loan? Now it's the next question. We're able to do the loan faster and faster. And in most cases, AI has also given a huge advantage to the appraisal companies because just like you said, is the value accurate? Well, a lot of the times now the lenders are utilizing AI to do appraisal waivers and doing desktop appraisals, which don't require an actual human being to go out and look at the property. That's an advantage and a disadvantage.
Let's talk about that just for a
I'm
second,
not,
because I just
yeah,
want to interrupt you because I think the audience needs to know what the difference is between a tabletop versus an actual appraisal.
yeah. So the advantage here is we're able to, the lender accepts an AI version of what the property is worth. So if you're under contract for 800,000, we plug it into our underwriting system, and if we get appraisal waiver, what that means is the computer already looked at the property and identified that the property is cookie cutter enough to be able to support that $800,000 value. Now, in this case, the borrower, the buyer of the property, can reject that desktop appraisal. They do not have to accept the AI version of the appraisal. But if an actual human being comes in and says, "Well, actually, I think the property is worth 770 instead of 800,000," you have to now abide by the person that's going out and getting it. So one version is sometimes if the value is under a million, a desktop appraisal or appraisal waiver is altogether possible. I've gotten many appraisal waivers in the last year, and it simplifies the loan process because at times when we don't need to really care about what the appraised value is, as long as it matches the purchase contract, it's a good way to streamline everything. We can close a lot faster that way.
Now,
So I think that's an advantage.
is that something that's disclosed to the borrower? Does the borrower know, for example, that their appraisal was done by AI?
Yeah. We definitely, they actually have to sign a waiver. Everything is all about disclosures in the real estate industry.
Right,
And
right,
just the same, they are now signing a disclosure indicating that in this case, I chose to have this desktop appraisal done. This is not a human being indicating my house is worth 800,000. This is a computer generated system that have
right,
said that, 800,000 is good enough for this type of loan. And the files usually are lower risk, usually conventional, again, under a million value, and we can most of the time get the desktop appraisals to get approved. It's nothing we have control over. I can't make a file get this desktop appraisal
right.
viable if there's credit challenges or lower down payment. Then that's out of the window. But most of the time, we're able to get those for more qualified buyers.
Well, I find that
The
I find that,
streamlining of the underwriting is what ultimately has
right,
been just key.
right.
We're able to do things a lot faster.
For those of you that may not be aware, the appraisal part of the actual transaction, of course, is an extremely important part, maybe as extremely important as the actual inspection itself in some cases. And appraisals, of course, really are something that can be disputed by a realtor, by the buyer, and it really turns into a situation. And the question that I have for you is that it's very, very difficult for us, for example, to question an actual on-site appraisal. So when
Mhm.
a customer, or I'm sorry, whether when a client has a question about the AI feed, how does that process work? In other words, how do they dispute that?
They would not dispute it. It would just match the purchase contract or the appraised value, what we put in the system. So if whatever the application says, let's say we say the property is worth 800,000, if the system agrees with it, there is no reason to dispute it because it would not make any
Right,
negative impacts to the loan at that point. They can choose to waive it. They could choose to say, no, I want to see if my property is worth over whatever the computer says, but that's a risk because
right,
a real human being can come in and say, actually, I don't think it's even worth 800,000. It can
right.
be,
And for those
whatever it is, or it can be worth over.
and for those that you may not be aware, in my 26 years, I probably have seen an appraisal go over value. Not very often. It hardly happens. Most appraisers do sort of play it safe when it comes to making sure that they don't go over the listing price, because it just
Yeah.
creates a lot of hassle. So that doesn't surprise me. But anyway,
No, but yesterday, for instance, I have a VA buyer that's buying a property in Torrance for 1.6 million, and the appraiser came in and said the property is actually worth 1.7. That's $100,000 of instant equity for this person, and they are happy to receive those news. You know, that's something satisfactory to them, and
yeah, it's always
all
good news.
good news all around.
Good news all around,
Yeah.
right? Good news for everybody. And
Yeah.
with
But
that,
I think in this case, the AI is going to change things, but it will never replace the loan officer. It will never replace the realtor, because AI ultimately cannot be licensed. And right now, you need a licensed individual in order to, between the contracts, between the loan, you cannot get a loan through AI. It just doesn't work. You still have to have a human being with a license, with a heartbeat, with a social security number, or whatever else they require to be
right,
vetted to be the end game person who signs off on your loan. So
right.
it will streamline it, but I will never be replaced, which is good news.
I don't think I'll be replaced either, just from the disclosure aspect of things. Now, the marketing, our profession has changed incredibly over the last 20 years. However, I think I had 119 different disclosures once that I listed to show people how vulnerable they are to breaking the law without even really intending on doing so. If you're a home if you're a for sale by owner, I will guarantee you, without any intention, you will break the law. And it has
Yeah.
to do with disclosures and what your responsibilities are to the buyer. And unless you're, you know, really on it and don't depend on AI to protect you, you are going to cross a line, and some lawyer out there is going to have a ball with any kind of transaction like that. So the bottom line is, and before we
Right.
leave today, because we're already pretty much at 18 minutes, just wanted to mention that the market has changed a great deal. We are seeing less days on market, which indicates that there's more buying going on. Inventory is still a little slow. Unfortunately, because of the war, we don't know what variable that has going to create. We won't know for a few weeks now when the data comes in. But the bottom line is, if you're a buyer right now, uh, you you do have to realize that the market is heating up a little bit, and the days on market have just about been cut in half. 40 to 60 days is no longer applying. I have on my Instagram site right now the three beach cities days on market, and they've been cut down to about, I would say, an average of 30 days. So, despite inventory being low, it's a bet of um, a seller's market. It's turning into one right now. But anyway, we'll see what happens the next few weeks. So, with that said, thank you for joining us. We're here at 11 a.m. every single Tuesday. We've missed maybe probably 3 or 4 over the last 6 months or so that we've been doing this. But if you'd like to ask a question or have any inquiry about the real estate in the South Bay, make sure to reach out to both Anastasia and I, and we'd be happy to help you.
Happy to help. Thank you so much. And until next Tuesday, we'll see you on this wonderful St. Patrick's Day. And if you need help buying or selling real estate in the South Bay and beyond, reach out.
Thanks, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.